Hey, welcome to Detecting the Marvelous. This is a special episode. We're going to talk about the X-Men 97 first couple of episodes that just dropped. We're all super excited. I've watched it 3 times now, both episodes. Dan, Shaharah, welcome. What did you both think of the show?
Needly nee nee nee. Needly
Nee, nee,
nee
nee, nee,
nee.
nee, nee. Nee, 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 nee.
It's one of those shows where I don't skip over the title sequence. It's so
Yeah,
catchy.
Yeah. I've
yeah,
heard it's yeah, it's like there's like 2 shows like that one and The Simpsons. I never skip the opening credits, and there was someone had posted, like, on Facebook, another comedian, Sam Norton, said, like, "Oh, this if you s like, this should not even be an option. If you skip this
Mhm.
opening credits, it's a hate crime. Like, this is the best." Like,
You've just like forgone your right to watch the rest of the episode. That's
yeah,
just like,
you're not a
sorry, you're
true
not a
fan.
true believer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you spot the thing in
I
the
did, yeah,
intro?
I saw, yeah, when you told me to, like, spot when the Marvel animation logo, when they showed all the old, like, because I think they even showed, like, the '60s Spider-Man as
60
well,
Spider-Man,
yeah.
which the cameras for the early, well, they used to be when I went to Metropolitan Toronto University. Um, they used to have the cameras that Spider-Man and Rocket Robin Hood were filmed on. They're the same
Wow.
cameras.
Oh,
So,
wow.
like, I lost my flipping because, I mean, when I was, like, 4, 5, 6, I was watching that on TV. So, it's like
Yeah.
I'm using the same cameras to shoot animation that
Oh, cool.
Spider-Man was and Rocket Robin Hood were shot with.
Spider-Man himself used these same cameras.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Peter Parker was there, and,
Yeah.
this is where he got bit by a radioactive spider. But yeah, so that was like, "Oh, that's so awesome." So I thought that was cool. I love the animation update. Like, it's true to the spirit, but it's not super cheap. I mean,
Yeah,
even
it's
the
more, yeah, it's like a higher level, like, sort of like catching up with the times, but still keeping, like, very much the same style as the '90s one, the original
Yeah.
one, yeah.
It reminds me of like, I mean, of course, I didn't grow up in the '90s, unfortunately. I think I'm the only one here that didn't grow up in the '90s. But it felt very nostalgic watching it. Even from, like, the animation style of it's just gonna show how young I am, but I'm like, "Oh, like, it reminds me of, like, Batman the Animated Series and how
For
that
sure.
animation, like, because it's from the exact same time."
Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
it I agree with you in that they were able to do some more modern things, but still give it that old feel, and it felt very updated and
So,
very
have you
fun. Yeah.
watched much of the ancient historical '90s, series, Shahara?
No, not at all, and it's
Oh,
something that I
okay,
wanna
cool.
get into more, and I feel like I should, being on
Yeah.
the podcast, for sure.
Yeah, well, it's on Disney Plus if you wanna watch it. It is dirt
Perfect.
cheap crap animation, the
Yeah, it's
original. I mean, it got worse in season 3 because it's Saban, the folks who make Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, had the rights to produce it and just decided to cheap out and fire the studios that had been doing the art up to that point
oh,
Oh my
really,
and
goodness.
got
eh?
us even cheaper. So they were always inexpensive, but very detailed oriented. And you see that like partway through season 3, just the drop off a cliff, the animation quality.
Boop, beep, boop,
Yeah,
boop, boop. Oh,
exactly,
I have
exactly.
it right now.
It was pretty bad. So it was cheap to begin with, like cheap animation, but it got cheaper. Um,
Interesting.
but like now, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Batman the Animated Series because that and the original X Men started on the same year.
Oh,
So
no
they were both like
way!
within a couple of months of each other. I think X Men was a couple of months older,
Wow.
but they both were released at the same time. And I was a Batman. It was funny. Like lines were drawn, and I was on the line. I was on the side of Batman because I mean it's like so epic and beautiful, and they
Yeah,
had a budget.
Of course.
So you had this like luscious art compared to just a kind of wonky thing. But I mean, I love the voice cast. Almost all the original voice cast,
yeah.
which
Wow.
is cool.
It's one of the things
Um,
I liked is because they didn't go with, like, all, like, main Hollywood stars or whatever. They didn't go with any. like trying to shoehorn any big names in there. They're all
Yeah.
like just like classic, solid, like animation voice actors.
Yeah, and the only 3 who didn't return, the guy who played Cyclops because he'd passed away, um, the woman who played Jean Grey because she's a member of parliament,
Mhm.
um, and, I mean, I'm sure Trudeau could let her go and do some voice acting in a closet in Parliament Hill, but,
That's so funny.
and the woman who played Jubilee because she felt an Asian voice actor should
Oh
portray
wow! All
Jubilee.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
So
Smart.
yeah, I think it's like pretty awesome. It really gets the vibe. Um how familiar are you both with the story beats that they're hitting there? Have you read that era?
I am so new. I'll be completely honest. I'm Dan, like, I feel like you know more about X-Men than I do. Do you?
Probably. I mean, X Men was one of the ones I like. I mean, I read a lot of X Men growing up. I don't remember like a lot of the '90s like story beats that they're going on, but I remember Genosha. Like like there was a lot of talk
Mhm.
of Genosha in the '90s of like that being the like sort of X Men or the like mutant country. Um, but I feel like you don't. I mean, like I don't remember, but I feel like I didn't need to remember it. I just remembered the vibe and just
Yeah.
watching it. I thought was just so cool. Like it was so much fun. It was really like great. It was very mature too. 'Cause that's what I always remembered is like X-Men and Batman were a little darker than the other like 90s comic ones. For me, it was like X-Men, Batman, and Spider-Man were the 90s cartoons that I loved
Yeah.
watching. And also all three of them like unskippable intros as well. Like all fantastic intro music. Like the Batman again, another one that you should not skip. Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
one of the things I loved about the original is they took the core elements of stories from comics and adapted them. I mean, they had several comic writers doing the adaptations. So like things like the Morlocks, who you see in episode 2, that was I think they were featured in episode 3 or 4. Basically everything that happened in this cartoon or those 2 cartoons is from the comics. They're
Wow.
from a whole bunch of different age eras. Well, not different eras, but they're from like probably 81 to about 92, 93 storylines that were
Okay.
interwoven. Because you have Jean Grey and the Dark Phoenix
I
saga,
remember
which is in the original
yeah,
comics.
that one I
Um,
remember most clearly, I think, is the Dark Phoenix one and the
yeah,
Shi'ar stuff.
yeah, and that's all sort of the last couple of seasons of the cartoon, the original cartoon.
Yeah.
You had the Morlocks in there. You had even like a Magneto's sort of babyface turn, to use a wrestling term, like when he
Mhm.
became a good guy again. Um, all of that is there, but watching this, it has me so excited because they're really setting up Mr. Sinister to be the big bad.
Oh,
Um,
cool. I didn't
and
realize
because he,
that.
yeah, well, I mean, if you watch the intro, um, because he kidnapped Morph, right, like that in the original cartoon,
Mm.
which they
Okay.
reworked that, and he brainwashed Morph into being a bad guy, and they sort of lured him back to the good side.
Oh, I do
Um,
remember that issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he's the big. So how comfortable are you with me spoiling 30-year-old comics?
Go for
Hmm.
it.
I think that you can absolutely go for it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
so the very last shot is of in the cartoon. It's Jean Grey coming to the door, right? Well,
Yeah.
who's Nate Summers' mom? It's
Jean.
not Jean Grey. It's Madeline Pryor, a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister,
Oh.
Oh,
who
shit.
later becomes the Goblin Queen and has an affair with Scott's brother, Havoc,
Oh,
and
damn.
almost kills the entire team of the X-Men, selling her soul to a demon. And that's how they get Nate back. Nate gets the techno-organic virus, goes to the future, becomes
Mhm.
Cable. So they've set up the Inferno saga, which
So
ties
this is
heavily
crazy
into
stuff.
Mr. Sinister because he did all this cloning stuff, you see Sinister reflected in Morph's eyes in the intro. Like, this is like I am so
Yeah.
nerding out watching this because I'm like, "Oh my god, did they just do that? Oh my god," kinda thing.
Yeah.
So
It's oh wow. I mean, it's
You
very
might
cool. I
mhm.
think it. Yeah,
No,
well,
no, no,
actually, I
I
want to
totally
know.
cut you off, yeah.
No, I want to know from your perspective, Shahara, because you didn't watch the original show, so like going in fresh, like yeah, what did you think of these two episodes?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think they did a very good job at introducing me to all of these characters because I've like as soon as I started doing the podcast, I was like, okay, well, basic comic knowledge is the X-Men, so I have to get into it. And I think they did a very good job at introducing me to each of the characters. Like the title sequence has each of their names. I knew who
Yeah.
Cyclops was, and Storm, of course. And then at the very end, even the ending title sequence, or yeah, the ending sequence, they have like the character descriptions.
Like the little
So
like
they're
video game sort of
kind of like a video
thing.
game,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I
this is
was
the
like, okay,
yeah, it's supposed to be the Cerebro file on everybody. If
Yeah.
you
exactly.
watch the original, it has the same thing, but it's so bad because it's like 1994, 1993 computer animation.
Mm.
So it looked like
Yeah.
it's just really bad
It's like
looking.
low
Yeah.
poly Roblox sort of like
Well, it's
yeah.
like it's high tech for the time, like,
Mhm.
blew my mind away in the '90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a PS2 game, if that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
Do you mind if I
yeah.
ask, was the and I'm sure that the power suppression, like the collars and then what
Mhm.
ends up happening to Storm at the end of the second episode, like, was that at all part of the Inferno, series back in the comics, or
Predates the Inferno because that's what the thing, they're overlap like, the trial of Magneto happened. That
Mhm.
and literally is shot for shot. The speech he gives is a reworked version of the speech.
Which was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because now it hits even harder after January 6th.
Mhm.
Like, the
For sure.
stormings they really layered that component in.
I was gonna say that whole section, it's so wild to show like how timeless the X-Men are because so yeah, like obviously it very much felt like January 6th, that whole thing. And then even when they talk about like, oh, Genosha being recognized as a state, I never thought I'd
Yeah.
see the day. Like I was like, wait, like how recently did they write this? Because it is really like hitting on current events, like in a way that I was like, wow, like it is
Yeah.
like this like these like old issues like you said like 30-year-old issues but it's still like so very relevant if not more relevant
Yeah.
nowadays so yeah I was like very impressed. I was like whoa
Yeah.
like it's
And I mean, like, so every component is from the comics, but they're from different components. So they're overlapping story. I suspect Inferno is not gonna be this season, it's gonna be next season because you
Mm.
need a lot of roadmap. I think this season is gonna be dealing with, s uh, Storm and is the B plot. Um, I don't know what they're gonna do because the Morlocks have gone to Genosha, but in the comics, she became the leader of the Morlocks during this phase when she was powerless. And they've already played with the timeline because that leads into the Reavers, which is God, I haven't read this stuff in years and I remember it better than anything. So Mariko, which was Wolverine's girlfriend and the daughter of his mentor,
who
when
shows
he
no
got
no 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 not Mariko, yeah, sorry, I was for example I was confusing her with lady it's Lady
well,
Deathstrike
she
who shows
becomes
up,
Lady Deathstrike.
right? Oh, okay, yeah, that's
So
right.
yeah, when that's what I was gonna say. Like when he's abducted for Weapon X, she gets herself cybernetically upgraded because she thinks he abandoned her, and she comes to hate all mutants. So she gets herself turns herself into a mutant killing cyborg with like
Mm.
razor fingers. Because
Mm.
I guess everything with Wolverine is stabby stabby.
Yeah, true. Yeah, all his X-23, Wolverine,
Yeah,
Lady Deathstrike,
yeah,
they're all like Sabretooth, they're all like stabby hands.
yeah. But yeah, so they've toyed with the timeline, so I'm not entirely sure because like the Storm stuff should be completed by Inferno, and it should even actually have been completed by the classic cartoon era because Angel becomes Archangel, or well, Angel becomes Death and then Archangel in the Age of Apocalypse stuff, which they do in the classic cartoon. So they've just messed it all around. So I'm seeing elements, but I don't. I'm just guessing, making educated guesses because it's like everything is so mixed around. It'll be interesting to see where they go. I don't know. It'll be
I'm looking forward to when they slightly change one tiny little detail, and then the next episode is Matt ranting about how they're ruining his childhood, and then
if I ever complain about anybody ruining my childhood, you have the right to like take away my internet.
Uh-huh.
well,
It
and
is yeah.
yeah, I think they'll probably change things a little bit just so like it's not like carbon copy into like the way
Mhm.
like the MCU movies have kind of like they won't do things exactly like the stories that inspire them in order to kind of get like so that you don't be like all right and then this is going to happen and this is going to happen just to like give
Yeah.
us something new to look forward to.
Yeah, yeah. Keep us on our toes.
Yeah.
I mean, you already have the. It's funny, like before the episodes were even out, they were like there was this contingent of comic book. I hesitate to call them fans. Complaining about how they're making the X-Men woke and they
Yeah.
wokeified Rogue, and I'm like, it's the exact same outfit. Like, what are you talking
Like,
about?
and X-Men
It's
was, like, always that, like, kind of like, it was all like, the whole thing was about them like, it was, like, a minority group that stands up for themselves while, like, they were literally, like, these social justice literal warriors, like,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, at least since the 1974 giant size X-Men. Like the one before that, they kind of say they were. It's not quite there because I mean
Mm.
that's before they wrote in Magneto's backstory and stuff. But like since 1974,
Yeah.
they've been like that. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, like,
But
Professor X is, like, inspired by Martin Luther King Jr., so, like, he's, like, kind of like, amongst other, like, figures. So, like, they are, like, basically, like, inspired by the actual woke culture, not the just, like, slang for anyone who's too, like or whatever, you
yeah.
know? Yeah. I
So I was gonna ask, what are you both looking forward to? Like, is there anything that you want to see or you're excited to find out more about in the coming season?
Good question. Dan, do you want to go first?
sure, I was gonna say Storm getting back her powers. I was heartbroken when Storm, like,
Yeah.
lost her
That
powers.
letter, oh, just
Yeah.
hits hard because especially because it's so much of her nature is tied up in that.
Yeah.
For sure, like it's part of her like character and her spirituality, and she's
Mhm.
one of the most like she's one of the most powerful X-Men.
She's an
Uh
Omega level mutant. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like
yeah.
yeah, like she's huge. And it's one of the things where like I felt like they never quite got her in the comics, in the movies, in the movie adaptations.
Yeah.
I felt like they never showed just how like, big she was. But and like always and because Wolverine was always my favorite, and so I really like Wolverine here, but I also really love like Wolverine and Storm. I think have a really cool relationship
Hmm.
where they like disagree on a lot of things, but they always have there's a strong like respect for each other.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm looking forward to like seeing more of that kind of stuff. But like honestly, I'm good. Like after those first two issues, I'm ready for the ride. I love to see more of like Magneto being like, no, I promised Charles, but like this, even though this is my original philosophy, and I'm sure at some point he's gonna compromise and maybe break a promise or two. So yeah, it'll be really cool to see just how everything works out. I'm excited.
Yeah. Shara,
Yeah.
what about you?
Well, Dan went and stole my thing. I was going to talk about Storm as well. No, wholeheartedly agree with everything you said, Dan. Um, I'm excited to see because when she like when she's on the floor crying, it felt so
Yeah.
anti-Storm. Like to
Mhm.
bring a hero like her so strong down into a ball crying because like she said, like she can't feel the wind. She can't like what all these sensations she's had her entire life is gone, and it was
Yeah.
heartbreaking. Like that was so I'm excited to see her storyline and what that turns into. But if I'm attempting to be different, I'm also interested in this like I don't know what like okay, what are they setting up with Magneto and Rogue? What is
They were
Is that what
lovers.
Okay,
They
that's
were
what I
lovers. Yeah,
thought,
because
yeah.
he can control magnetism, he can create a field that nullifies her powers around his body, so he's one of the few people who can touch her
Yeah.
without because she almost killed
Right.
Carol Danvers. That's how she got most of
Oh.
her current superpowers.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sh
Captain
yeah.
Marvel, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
she permanently imprinted Captain Marvel's memories, and because
Wow.
normally it fades after a time. It's not like she permanently retains those powers, but she did, and this is why she went good. Is she like had this internal conflict because she almost killed this hero, and it
Mhm.
left her with power of flight and super strength, which she didn't have before. But also left her with these memories, and then it modified her personality
Wow.
because of that. So this is back when she was a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which was run by Magneto,
Okay,
and
cool. Thank
most
you
of
for
the
sharing
X-Men
that.
didn't know that.
Interesting,
Mm.
because I feel like right now they're keeping it kind of, like, sus, like, under like, it's very secretive, it's a cat that can't leave the bag
Yeah,
at this point,
Yeah,
but
that's a good way of
yeah,
putting it.
I can't
yeah.
help but find it sweet. I don't know, I actually really
And
do
it's a
like
love triangle between
Yeah.
between Gambit and his like crop top metal shirts and I love that, like, "Well, you can't take away my other superpower," and takes off his shirt. I mean, like, Jesus, Gambit.
Yeah.
This
He's
was a
like
role made for Channing Tatum. So
he's like Jacob in Twilight New Moon, where he just, like, is taking off his shirt, like, at every 5 seconds, like, it's in Gambit's contract.
yeah.
It's a one-handed rip off of the shirt, and
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, teen
yeah,
Uh,
drama again. But no, I really do. I'm a sucker for love. That was kinda cute, and I don't know, like, Magneto being a good guy in this and wanting to follow Francis Xavier's wishes and the trust that's built around the X-Men like household is something that like really I'm connecting to and something I'm excited to follow throughout the series.
well,
yeah.
one last thing I wanted to bring up is, like, at the battle at the end of the battle, the Sentinels, like, literally every battle that Wolverine is in, he's nearly naked by the end of every battle. Like, have you noticed that? Like, everybody else's costume is intact, but his is, like, hanging in tatters with his, like,
Yeah.
hairy arms and hairy chest showing. It's like, what like, does he have, like, a different costume maker or something?
Yeah, it was just he's scratching up his, like, he's mostly clawing himself more than the other, people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alright, well, that was our thoughts on X-Men '97. We'll have to revisit this at some point, but, yeah, well, thanks for listening.
Woo! New, 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 new.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. This is Matt, one of the hosts, as you know, because you listen to the show. Thanks again for being a part of our audience. Please share the love, comment, like, subscribe, let your friends know if they're comic fans. If you enjoyed this special episode where we talked about X-Men '97, let us know in the comments. We'll do more episodes about cartoons. It's really fun to do. I love cartoons. I am a 13-year-old at heart, so check it out. Let us know. Now, before we start talking about next week's episode, let us tell you, or let me tell you in specific, about a magical journey I'm going on. I received a pack of Magic Mind, the world's first mental performance shot. You can find them at magicmind.com. They are a tasty kind of treat full of herbs and nutrients, mushroom, all sorts of things that I can't name. It's supposed to invigorate you and give you energy and make you just alert. So I started trying it, and I have to say, it it is a pick me up. It tastes pretty good. I've been using my Soda Stream and pouring it into there. It's very fizzy. I might have to under fizz it because it fizzes right up like a concoction that you'd get in a comic book, like some mad scientist's brew, something that maybe Doctor Strange would give me when I'm traveling to his school, the Strange Academy. But, anyways, It's been tasty. Follow my journey over the next few weeks with this interesting product, and I'll let you know what I think. Now, if you're interested in today's episode, you'll be interested in next week's episode. We are going to be talking about Champions Volume 1 Change the World. Yes, not the 1975 lineup, but the 2000s lineup. Yeah, Ms. Marvel is now the leader of her own team, and she's going to show the adults how it's done because the kids are all right. Anyways, I've been Matt Ardell. Your other hosts have been Shaharah Ghaznavi and Dan Rosen. Music by Glenn Bouchamp. Art by Ben Steamroller. This has been a co production with ShowbizMonkeys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and Excelsior!